This is going to be an interesting one because, as I'm sure you know by now, we finally have a new Nissan Frontier for the 2022 model, and in this video we're gonna talk about some of the spec and tech of both of these, the Toyota Tacoma and the Nissan Frontier, and I'm gonna show you the front, the side and the rear and talk about each little design feature and which one I would buy today, because in the end the tipping point for me is, no matter the spec and tech, they're so similar in that regard. So what's going to be the determining factor for me is going to be the design. So I look forward to jumping into Photoshop and talking about that. But first, let's talk about the different trim levels here that we're going to compare between the Frontier and the Tacoma. So we have the Pro 4X trim for the Frontier and the TRD Off-Road for the Tacoma when we go through the spec and tech here and the basics, because I want to go through this because these type of vehicles where this actually matters a lot more than if you were to have a regular good old sedan or something like that. So the Toyota starts at $35,510 with the TRD Off-Road package. I know that the Tacoma has been around in this version since 2016. It's getting a little old, but they did refresh recently where they added the LEDs in the front headlights, and I think that made it look a lot more modern, just that tiny change to the front end. And also if you have the black grille, it looks a lot better than any type of chrome you could have on the Toyota. Now the Nissan for the Pro 4X trim here costs about $2,000 more. Not a full $2,000, so the Toyota is $35,510, the Nissan is $37,240, so $37,240, and the Nissan comes with a 3.5 liter V6 engine that puts out 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. The Nissan is offered with a 3.8 liter V6 that puts out 310 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque. So this gives the Frontier a 32 horsepower advantage over the Tacoma and 16 pound-feet more torque. I'd say when it comes to these type of vehicles, torque matters a little more than just horsepower. Considering there's only a slight difference here between the two in torque, you can expect them to perform pretty similarly off-road. One feature though that matters a lot to a lot of buyers of off-road trucks is the transmission. So the Toyota TRD Off-Road here comes with a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic, whereas the Nissan only comes with a 9-speed automatic in the Pro 4X trim. If this is good or bad, that is totally up to you, because some people prefer a manual transmission when they off-road, and some people just don't really, it doesn't really matter to them. Personally, I think it's highly unlikely that the 9-speed auto in the Nissan here will have any issues off-road. It's something they must have tested a lot before approving it for production, obviously. But you never really know for sure until it's been in the hands of the users for a while. So I guess we're gonna find out eventually how this 9-speed auto performs off-road. Now this is pretty interesting when we're talking about the brakes here. So the Tacoma TRD Off-Road is equipped with vented front discs, which is pretty standard. However, the rear you get drum brakes, which to me feels a little outdated, even though I'm pretty sure they perform just as good and just as they should. On the 2022 Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, you have vented discs in all 4 corners. The dimensions between the two trucks are pretty similar. They're very, very similar, with the Frontier being slightly smaller with a wheelbase of 126 inches compared to the Toyota's 127.4. The 2021 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road is 2 inches longer and about 2 inches wider as well than the Frontier at 212.3 inches in length and 75.2 inches in width. However, the Frontier sits 2 inches higher than the Tacoma at 72.4 inches compared to 70.6. Now, let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's talk about this design. So I'm really excited for the Frontier here. I think it's been long overdue to get this new model, and I really think Nissan did a fantastic job with the front end of this car, of this truck right here. It looks very chiseled. It looks very, very modern, specifically with these headlights that you have right here. Even though the new Tacoma here have facelifted, and you can see that you have the LEDs right here in here, which looks really good as well. But for me, when I look at these two, they look very similar, specifically in the bed area, which we're going to go into when we look at the side view and the rear view right here, and the greenhouse. These parts are very, very similar between the two. So it all really comes down to the graphics of the front end, and I would say the taillights as well, which we're gonna have a look at in just a second here. For me, what I would look at here, what determines which design I prefer the most, it's all about simplicity, because this is a truck, and the horizontal and vertical lines, the geometric forms and shapes in the front end, it matters to me in a truck. It wouldn't matter as much if it was an exotic or any type of sports car. Then I would rather have more dynamic lines, but since this is a truck, I want to have a look at how many horizontal lines we can find on each of these trucks and how many times they are broken by other lines that are not vertical. So let's have a look here at the Nissan, for example. We have a couple of horizontal lines right here, going here all the way down here, and they are not really broken that many times by lines that are other than vertical. So yes, we have this right here, obviously for the skid plate down there, but the grille, for example, and the headlights are pretty geometrical. They're pretty rectangular, and I like that in a truck. I also like this Chevy inspired kind of side slot right there, and we're going to talk about that more when I look at the side view, all the different pieces in the Nissan that I think they took inspiration from a bunch of different trucks, molded it into one, and somehow it just worked. So let's have a look at the Toyota here. We have a line right here, doesn't really stretches all the way from each corner of the car, from one corner to the other. It just stretches across the grille there, and then we have the same kind of line, and let's see, we have it pretty much, maybe here we can draw a line, not sure, because this doesn't really connect anywhere here. And then we have the bottom of the grille is a line, horizontal line, and we have this line right here. And we also have this massive graphic in the front end of the Tacoma, which is the grille. Don't get me wrong, I like both of these designs. I think these are very, very good looking trucks. They're not overly styled, even though it is a Toyota, and Toyota could possibly have done some overstyling here. But it comes down to the small details, such as these horizontal lines, which I love about the new Frontier. It has a bunch of them, and also these type of angles right here, this curvature here. I would rather have this go straight, for example, and the same thing here. I would rather have these headlights be more horizontal and more in line with the top line of the grille here. So to me, that's what really determines which design I prefer in the front end of these two trucks. And in the front end, it's going to be the Nissan Frontier for me. It looks more modern than the Tacoma, and even though I think the Tacoma, if they were to come out with something new today, they would still have this more of a Toyota styling approach to different angles, as I showed here, even though it would be a new truck. So let's have a look at the rear view here. The rear view with trucks, really, there isn't a lot to talk about design-wise, because there's so much functionality in the rear end that needs to work as advertised. So you can't really design a lot, but you do have some freedom as designers when it comes to the taillights right here. You can see the taillights right here, and the creases and styling points that you have in the tailgate right here. So you have a couple of creases right here. And if we look at these two, they are very, very similar when it comes to the bed design by itself. We have the same style of wheel arches here, as you can see. I think kind of plastic, because both of these are the off-road versions, trim levels of their model. And if we look at the tailgate design, we have the same similar type of creases in the top part here. You have a tiny line that goes here, and then you have this design down here, which houses the Tacoma text, same as the Frontier. We have the same type of styling right here, and you have the name Frontier stamped right there in the back. I kind of like the brown color on this Frontier. Maybe not the most popular color when it comes to the buyers, but if you think of it going off-road, going into the woods, it would blend in with the environment pretty well if you have that brown color right there. So here, I think they both look pretty good, the same thing here, but you do have these type of additional styling parts that I don't think are necessary, but are very Toyota-ish. For example, this line right here, and you also have more of a defined lines here as well. And if we look at the bumper design, you have some lines going like this instead of just having it be straight, which we have on the Nissan right here. So I don't know. Overall, I think here as well, the Nissan just looks like a larger, more solid truck in the rear end, where this looks like a smaller version of maybe the Frontier here, with all of these styling features and the angles that we have in the rear end. If you add too many lines to the rear end of a truck is going to look like a smaller truck, because here we have such a big surface area which nothing really happens, and that overall will make the truck look larger. So in this case as well, I'm gonna have to go with the Frontier here. Last but not least, let's have a look at the side view here. And by the way, I love this electric lime color that we have on the TRD Pro here. This is not the TRD Off-Road. It looks fantastic. Compare this complete opposite to the brown Frontier that we have right here. If you want to blend in nature, you probably don't want this color, but I think it looks fantastic anyway. So this is where you can definitely see all the similarities between these two. So let's just have a look at the Frontier up here. It's so interesting to see. You have some Ram inspired headlights right here, and then you have this side intake or side vent is some Chevy styling right here. And then if we look at this part right here, you see this little dip here in the window, and these taillights here, they're very much Ford-like. And then look at this piece right here. It is very much inspired by the OG Tacoma down there. Same with the greenhouse itself. If you look at the greenhouse here, you have this little dip right here, or this little line that goes up at this point, and you have the same line right here going just up a little bit at the very end of the bottom of the window right there. And overall, you can just see how similar these parts are in both of these trucks. If you compare this box with this box right here, very much inspired by the Tacoma, the new Frontier. There is nothing wrong with that, because I think the Tacoma looks very good. And if you look at the side view here, I kind of like that this line, even though it is a little bit too overstyled for my taste in a truck, but this actually continues into this line right here, which is a pretty cool design, because usually you don't see connections with the body or the greenhouse, the front end of a truck, and having the same kind of line flow go into the bed of the truck. That's an unusual feature that I enjoy, and that I think the Tacoma did great. In the side view, I'm not really sure here. This is where it becomes interesting, because you have this looks like more of an off-road front end than the Frontier at this point. So when we look at the side view here, I think I'm gonna have to go with the Tacoma when we look at the proportions and just have them compared like this, because you can't really see a lot of the overstyling that goes on, in my opinion, in the front end for a truck and in the rear of the Tacoma on this view right here, but you can still see the proportions, and the perfect, to me, these are perfect truck proportions for me, what I would need from a truck. Both of these, the size of these are just enough for what I would use them for. So it's the same thing here. It comes down to styling. And in this case, when we look at the side view, I think I'm gonna have to go with the Tacoma. So the bottom line, we have two points for the Frontier when we talk about the styling in the front and the rear, and then we have 1 point for the Tacoma. So in my opinion, if I were to buy one of these today, I would gonna have to go with the Frontier, not just because of the styling, but also because of the additional 32 horsepower or so, and I wouldn't mind having a 9-speed automatic as a transmission. Let me know which one you would pick in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.